Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to sit down and walk through my recent Witch King costume. I made this back in October and there was a bit of a delay trying to get this video made, but the main one is I got a new camera. So hopefully the video quality looks a lot better. I expect it's immediately going to look better. I was filming all my videos on this previously. So yeah, exciting news. Today, I am just going to walk through my costume. While making this, it was important for me to really just focus on making the cosplay, not really worrying about taking photos or videos, so this isn't going to be a great tutorial on how to make this. This is just going to be me walking through the process, talking about each of the pieces, talking about things that went right or wrong. Any patterns that I found online, I will also link in the description. Hopefully something that can help you if you want to make a similar piece. So I made this back in October, and I actually entered it in a cosplay competition, and it is my award-winning cosplay. I won Best of Novice category with it, and it was so exciting. But yeah, I don't know, let's jump right in. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the base dress that I used, and so this is actually a medieval dress pattern by aspiring costume designer on YouTube, and I'll go ahead and I'll link their video as well. I had done the dress out of a sheet once just to kind of see how it would look for medieval costuming, and I realized that it would actually be a very good base for the Witch King costume. So here it is, but one of the things that I really liked about that pattern was these sleeves. The sleeves are a very iconic part of the Witch King costume, so that's what drew me to this, specifically with my dress. Fabric type was super important for me in making this costume. Fabric type has become an important part of just building my everyday wardrobe. I'm trying to avoid polyester as much as possible just because I personally don't like it. But in looking at this dress specifically, reference photos had a very specific texture in the fabric that was very reminiscent of linen. And linen is very breathable but also very expensive. So in kind of wandering around my local fabric store, I found this fabric, which is actually like a viscose linen blend. So I think it's like 70% viscose and 30% linen. So it is super breathable. It's got the texture that I like, that I think really matches the costume. Got the fraying edges, which also helps look dramatic for the costume as well, because the ring wraiths and the Witch King very much are just a disheveled look. So it was important that I also had that on the edges. So I was super excited to find this blend. It's got like a natural flow and drape. Linen is very stiff, but this is not. So, movement looks very smooth. One of the problems that I did run into is that the fabric I bought was not wide enough. So the sleeves on this are actually pretty short. It doesn't quite reach the end, which works in most cases when I wear the costume, but there's definitely some photos where the arm girds they have Velcro, and it's very noticeable. It's very much not hidden. So something I would change with this base dress is to actually add extra fabric to the sleeve to make it longer, which I don't know if that seam would be the best. It would be pretty visible, but definitely something to pay attention to when you're looking at what fabric to buy. And if you're going to follow that pattern, make sure you're getting the right width. So for this, I actually think I learned how to do a French seam. I cannot confirm 100% if that is a French seam. Alright, so I'll do my best to explain what I did. So with the fabric, you have the outside or the right side, and the inside or the wrong side. That's the part that's going to be facing your skin. That's the part that's going to be facing away from your skin. For this seam that I did, what you're going to do is you're going to lay it wrong side together, so it just looks like what you would wear it as normally, and then sew along this edge. Kind of closer to the edge, the better. So once you have a seam in place here, open it up. So you're going to flip it over, so you have the two wrong sides together, and you're going to do another seam right here. With that seam that you're doing along the bottom here, you want to make sure that all this extra stuff is going to be caught in that seam. So for example, I've got the safety pin here underneath all the extra, so when I flip it back, it'll be a nice clean seam up top, and everything that was loose will be caught in here. Alright, so now we've got this seam right here, so when we flip it right side out, how you would wear the garment, that seam is completely hidden. So there's nothing visible here. And when you flip it back over, it is encapsulated, it looks nice and neat. Yeah, that's what I did. But yeah, it was very important to have a finished seam on the sleeve. Part of this fabric just had a natural seam edge in it, but with the pieces that I did cut, I did go through. So like for this one, I did a zigzag stitch just to prevent it from fraying any more than just the little bit I want. Same with the base. I also went through and I did I not hem the bottom? Okay, so apparently I didn't hem the bottom. I know I wanted some natural fraying to happen, but I thought I did. Might need to do that in the future. That is the dress. We'll go ahead and move on to the next kind of wearable piece, which is just this. So I think this is more akin to what linen might look like. I think this is a linen cotton blend. But this was just a remnant that I got, a nice square or rectangle of fabric. And I didn't do much to this. I did actually hem this one, so I left room for it to fray naturally over time. But I did use a zigzag stitch where there wasn't already a stitch in place to make sure it didn't hem all the way back. So this piece literally is what sits under the helm and in between, not the gauntlets, pauldrons, I think, to create that first layered look. And I think this piece is also actually pretty good for making just a ring wraith look, but I'm pretty sure with just the dress, this, and the gloves, I could just be a basic ring wraith. But for the Witch King, this is how this piece fits in. Oh yeah, that could be. Okay, anyways. Again, fabric type was important. I liked this one because it actually had a really nice contrast compared to the base dress. So you can see the different textures between them. They're still both black, but the dress is a little bit darker. This overall has a little bit of a rattier look just because of all the lines that it has and all the creases. So I think that contrast also works really nice for the costume. One thing that I did do that I don't know how effective it is with this, but I did actually put some Velcro right here. So with the Witch King and with my helm, I've actually lined it up so that the eyes are not in line with my eyes. I wanted to create the illusion of me being much taller, much like the Witch King is. In order to do that, you know, my eyes are here, but in looking at the reference photos, you could very much tell that there was still something underneath. So I wanted to create that peak with the fabric as much as possible. It's unfortunately not the best, but I sewed on some Velcro here, and when I put this on and I put the helmet on, it attaches to the helmet here to create the illusion that there is something under my head. So instead of it just falling here and the helm being completely flat, like there's nothing there, it should create this shape when I wear the costume. That's pretty much the only notes from this. Again, fabric type, super important. Cotton, linen, blend. You know, making sure it doesn't fray beyond the point that it's sewn. And you can run Velcro through your sewing machine. I learned that, and that was super helpful. Alright, so I'll go on to the last major fabric piece I have, which is this hood. Obviously, the Witch King does not have a face visible, so I have a hood that I can use. This is the one piece that I used for my fabric stash. The other pieces I did go out and specifically buy because I really wanted that fabric type. This I got from my fabric stash, and it was an old bed sheet. And I thought it was a cotton bed sheet. I am pretty sure it is polyester because as soon as I put the hood on, temperature rises, it's a little hard to breathe through. During the cosplay prejudging, I was very nervous to begin with and also very warm because under this costume I am also wearing pants and a shirt. And so with the hood on and trying to talk and trying to work through my nerves, it was a little overwhelming. So this is the one piece that I will be remaking if I ever take this to a convention again, which I do plan to. It's a lot. I really wanted to use a bed sheet because it already had a corner built in, And this bedsheet is also, I can see through this pretty well. It is reduced vision, obviously, but let's see if it actually works on the camera. Yeah, so you can kind of see, you can see my hands here. Obviously, the camera is making it a lot darker, but it is something that I can still see. Can't really see my phone, can't see details like that, but I can see where I'm going. I can see if there's people in the way. So again, I wanted to use a bedsheet because it already had a corner built in, which made it a lot easier to actually do this. I didn't really have a plan, I just kind of went for it. I left the edge down here open. It makes it easier to get on and off because everything is black and I've got the scarf over it. That opening is covered up as well. But yeah, so I've got stitches all the way around to create that shape. And then I did finish off, I think this is a rolled hem. So I've got a rolled hem all the way around to make it look nice and pretty. Nothing much else to say about this. Fabric type was wrong. It has made me miserable. So that's something I plan to change in the future. So that was the majority of the fabric pieces that create the base of the costume. And then the rest of this I'm going to be jumping right into foam. So for this I just used craft foam. It's like 99 cents at the craft store. I used very thin foam. Again, I wanted this to be very light and very usable considering it's a lot of pieces. So you can see this foam is incredibly thin. I did also use Worbla for the mask and some of the pieces that I'll talk about later. The Worbla was very important to actually create structure and shape for a lot of these, but the areas where I could just get away with the foam, I did. Worbla is expensive. Alright, so before I made this costume, I kind of wanted to make two proof of concept pieces mostly unrelated to this costume, just to see if I could work with the materials, if I had any major concerns. So the first thing I did was I actually made a pauldron, just out of craft foam. It looks nice, the shape is weird. That's definitely something I will need to work on in the future, but basic pauldron, great for Renaissance fairs. So this was my first kind of experience working with shaping foam. And then in order to get some experience with Worbla, I actually tried to make the Witch King sword. It looks a lot better on camera than it does in person. A lot of it is very bumpy. There is a rod in the center and craft foam for the base. And unfortunately, I was not able to get the craft foam smooth. So there's a lot of different like bumps and divots that are showing up in the Worbla because I just didn't have the tools or the expertise to get the craft foam smooth enough to put the Worbla on top. Also, this just looks pretty bad up here. It's fine. I'm not sure if I intended for this to be part of the costume. I did not take it to the con. I think this was just my first time making a sword. First time really trying to do something like this. You know, I had a lot of ambitions to actually do the intricate lines that exist here, but I wasn't able to do it with my skill level, and just kind of looking at how the rest of the sword was coming out, it didn't make a lot of sense for me to put in the effort to do so. So yeah, this was my first time working with Worbla. I did this and then immediately was like, oh, I can make a Witch King costume. But apparently I can. So the first piece I'll talk about, easiest pieces. A lot of this I was actually working on like the night before the cosplay contest. So these pieces, A, I just kind of threw together, and B, weren't going to necessarily be visible. I wanted to make boot covers and shin covers in case that part of my costume became visible while I was walking. So I was wearing platform boots to kind of also give me some extra height and to kind of help with the illusion of height. So I made and I shaped these boot covers. This is 4 different pieces of foam that I just layered on top of each other to get this look. You can see I've got one seam here. There wasn't a lot of planning with this, so I just took pieces of paper and shaped them over my shoe. I am incredibly impressed. So the main glue I used for connecting anything to the foam that wasn't foam was E600, and it's holding up incredibly well. To connect foam to foam, so like at this seam here, I did use contact cement. Both of these are materials that I believe you need to be outside or have ventilation for, and a mask. Always pay attention to safety. Just got some shoe covers and some shin covers. And I did glue on all this Velcro. I didn't try to sew it. I think you can sew through craft foam, but I'm not gonna try to figure it out. And this is just in case any part of my foot ends up visible. The hem of the dress doesn't quite reach the floor. I did try to make it close, but I also didn't want to be tripping and stepping all over it, which almost worked out. All the strings at the end are a little tattered from my feet, but... Alright, so I will jump into my absolute favorite part of this costume, and that is the gloves. So these gloves are a couple different things. One is fabric. I had an old pair of leggings. I just put my arm down, traced a shape around to get the gloves, and I wanted them to go all the way up in case any part of my arm was showing under the costume. I wanted that to be all black. I made a channel and I put elastic in here to help keep it up as well. For the actual foam pieces, this is a pattern that I found online that I will put in the description. I really love the pattern. I do not think I could have done this without a pattern. One of the big things that I really wanted out of this build is the articulation of the gloves and like seeing each of those move as an individual piece. So there's obviously the very iconic scene where the ring wraith is stalking them in the first movie and he puts his hand over a branch and you can just see that glove close around it. I made these gloves and it was very important to get that articulation, and the pattern had that articulation as well, so that's why I really loved it. So for this cosplay, I, as much as possible, actually drafted everything out in the fabric and the material, or a fabric, and the material that I was going to use to actually see how it would work. So this is a draft one. You can see all the pieces. Each of these is an individual piece. So I think it's like... Okay, so it's about 30 pieces on this one glove alone. Each of these was cut out of foam. I did have to do a couple different adjustments to make sure the sizing was correct. Again, I was trying to go for much larger, taller figure. So I don't think this technically matches my hand super well, but for what I was going for the costume, I think it's a pretty good size. So all of these pieces are made out of craft foam, except this piece here, this kind of bridge piece, is also covered in Worbla. So when you look at the costume, it very much has these specific ridges that stick out, but I wasn't figuring out a way to keep that shape with just the craft foam alone. So I ended up covering that piece in Worbla, shaping it a bit with the Worbla. It's still not as prominent as I would like. It also very much needs to curve a bit more, but for the sake of my costume, worked out pretty well. And so for each of these kind of crown-shaped pieces here, I actually went in and I cut them out, and then I scored all of them along this little ridge. I folded them and I scored them, and I tried to glue it to keep that hump shape. I don't know that that worked out well or added anything, but when I was actually gluing them to the fabric, I put markers in the glove to keep the shape that my finger was going to be, so it was wrapped around that. So that also helped maintain the curved shape of each of those pieces as well. So again, this is a testament to the E600 glue that I used. When I am putting this costume on by myself, I have to have one glove on before I am putting on the other glove and putting on the bracer. And they haven't fallen off yet. So this is only attached by E600. And I did make sure that I was kind of only attaching at the base so I could get that articulation that I was looking for. And some of them are definitely loose. Like that one I will have to go back in and add a little bit more glue to. But it lasted a day and a half at the convention and in travel in my car. The Worbla piece is also glued down. These are all just glued down with E600. I did have a 2-pound block of clay that I used as a weight for all of the gluing that I did. And I think that definitely helped, having a weight on top of it. And also making sure that I had the markers in here to keep the shape and to also prevent it from gluing to the other side of the glove. So with each piece as an individual piece, I also painted and primed them. So not all the pieces received Plasti Dip. This piece definitely did not. I was not going to waste Plasti Dip on that. I don't know if the foot things did, but all the other visible foam pieces did receive a layer of Plasti Dip before they were painted. So a lot of this process was just waiting for things to dry. But each individual piece got Plasti Dip on the top and the bottom, and then I actually went through, spray painted them silver, And then the weathering was super fun and super important. I actually used a rust brown first to give it that much dirtier vibe, and then I just went over with a black, kind of using a sponge to sponge it on, and then everything also got a clear coat as well to help make sure the paint lasted as long as possible. So you can see that's kind of where that shine is coming from. I don't think there's anything else. The pattern was a little confusing and I did adapt it in different ways. I don't think I used specific thumb pieces. But yeah, so this is what the gloves looks like, completely out of craft foam. And then Worbla. And then just some old leggings. Yeah, so definitely one of my favorite pieces. Alright, next thing I will go on to is bracers. So this one I kind of drafted on paper. Okay, I have to take the glove off. Okay, so with this, I basically just cut out the main piece and then worked with paper to create a pattern that I liked, and then cut it out from the foam and glued it together. Again, foam on foam, so I just used contact cement. I think there are definitely some bracer patterns that are much more complex, but I just wanted something simple like this. However, this piece, this one and the top one are both Worbla. So in looking at the costumes, you can see that the dramatic sleeves kind of very much rest in this corner piece that sticks out. So in emulating that, I knew that I needed a very strong piece here to actually hold the fabric back. And I didn't think just foam was going to cut it. So again, drafted that out of paper, cut it out of foam, and then just wrapped it completely in Worbla. So for Worbla to Worbla, I just heated it up and adhered it like that. For the Worbla to craft foam, I honestly think I just heated that up and adhered it too. I think Worbla sticks pretty well to craft foam. Yeah, I don't believe there's any glue in between here. This is the one piece I did not prime or paint on the inside, but on the outside it is primed, it is painted. It is the same kind of color scheme with the reds or the browns and the black. You can see I was a little bit rushed. Didn't have the best paint job. I had some very large elastic that I used to actually hold it on my hand. And again, this is where the short sleeves are a problem because my arm is black underneath because of the glove, but this actually sticks out pretty prominently. So it's very obvious that there were giant pieces of elastic holding on this piece. So that is where I need to actually potentially go back and make those sleeves longer. I thought it would work because, again, you know, when it's like this, the sleeves are being held back here. So either way, the sleeve is going to look shorter because it's not covering the whole arm. But when it faces like this, it becomes pretty obvious. So with this, I actually glued on with E600 again. It's incredible how well that works. I sewed the edge here to prevent fraying. For some reason, I glued that edge and sewed it. And then for the elastic, I actually just sewed that directly on with the Velcro, and that works pretty well. So that's the bracer pieces, nothing really stand out there. So now I'm gonna jump on to the shoulder pieces. Woo! I hate these. These were the one piece that I didn't draft out before, that I kind of just went for it, at least for the base of them, and how they fit over the shoulder. And like, yes, they fit over the shoulder, but even with the original Pauldron that I showed you, I don't really like how it fits. I don't have a pattern for it that I referenced, I just wung it. It's a craft foam base, but then I also used Worbla to A, help with the shape, and B, create this part that stands up. In the Witch King's costume, you can very much see that there is a ridge that the fabric falls next to, so I wanted to recreate that. It's not one continuous piece. This kind of divot here is where the original Worbla is, and then I just folded this over so it doesn't match up super well. So I made top piece foam. I've got some darts, I think, in here to actually shape the foam a little better, to actually curve it. And then again, use the Worbla to cement the curve, kind of keep everything in place. And then added Worbla on the inside and folded it over, and then just kept heating it and shaping it until I got what I was looking for. So this is Worbla, and then these pieces I did draft out with paper and then just cut them out of foam. I didn't need them to have the same stability. Again, same paint job, everything was primed, everything was painted. I don't know what happened with the Worbla here. This is not my favorite piece in the mix. Yep, and then E600 glue on everything, which, again, I don't know how this stuff works, but it does. So I've got this one, which goes under my armpit, this elastic, which goes across my shoulder, And that, for the most part, keeps it in place. So one elastic here, one elastic here, and again, everything is covered by the other fabric. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. You can also see that this is just a very different shape than the other one. Alright, so that is that. And then the last piece, the piece de resistance, the best piece is the helm. So I remember like being in college, too afraid to actually get into cosplay, and I just was in my dorm one day and I made this piece out of cardboard. And it looked really great, and I wish I still could find a photo of it. You know, looking back, very much I always wanted to do cosplay, but I just never got into it. So I think making this costume was just something that I've always wanted to do. You know, I had a hood that I put on backwards, and I put the helmet on out of cardboard, and I remember being like, ah, yes, this looks cool, this is good, and then nothing ever came of it. This costume, this piece, is cementing a part of my childhood, and I'm so excited I got to make it, and I'm so excited I made it well. So this I also used a pattern for. I will link it below. So again, the base is going to be craft foam. Everything was made and cut out of craft foam first. I did use heat to try to get this shape with the craft foam as well, but I did also get the bulk of that shape just using Worbla, heating it and shaping it. So this shape, difficult. Do not know how to explain how I did it, except just Worbla. All of this is covered in Worbla. The spikes are not craft foam or Worbla. So I'll talk about everything else and then come back to the spikes. But yeah, pretty much everything the same. This was actually the first piece I made, so a lot of the lessons that I learned later on working with these, I couldn't apply to this. The inside is rough. I didn't want to cover the whole thing because Worbla is expensive. You can see where the edges just kind of make it over with the Worbla. I did spray paint the whole thing in case any part of it was visible. This part obviously was going to be visible as well, but you can see it's just a little rough. But when I wear it, that part is all pretty much hidden. And again, this is about where it sits on my head, hopefully to create the illusion of being taller. Also, two other things that I wanted to do with this, in looking at the Witch King's costume itself, this mouth area is very huge, very elongated, and I wanted to recreate that illusion, so using my whole face. Also, there's not a lot of movement in the way that I've created it right now, so having it rest higher up actually makes it a lot more wearable. Yeah, also when I put this on, it does obstruct my hearing, so doing the cosplay contest with obstructed hearing and obstructed vision, it's completely dark behind the stage. Yeah, it was a little overwhelming, but it was so much fun. Worbla craft foam, I used a pattern. I had no idea how to actually like adjust a pattern to print it out. I think I used Excel ultimately to adjust the pattern size to print it out. With the other pieces, I just traced it from my computer screen. I definitely need to smooth some pieces out. There's an indent at the end of the night on my head. These pieces are crooked. I don't know what happened when I was making this. Again, this was a piece that once I got the pattern printed, I just kind of went for it. I didn't really draft it up. And then I put the Worbla on that and things got a little wonky. So I think the base of one of these is just all Worbla. There's no craft foam to try to extend it and make it more symmetrical. Yeah, and then for the spikes, I actually used aluminum foil and then craft foam. I don't know if that was the best decision. The craft foam breaks. I've already glued a couple of these together, and there was another one that was broken. Is this it? I'm not going to find out. But another one that broke, so kind of any pressure on it and it'll snap. The aluminum foil does seem to keep it in place pretty well, so I haven't lost any pieces. But I've had to go back and glue the craft foam back to itself. So yeah, and then I used Worbla to actually attach it to the helm, so I don't know if you can see, but there's these little ridges or lines. That's where the Worbla starts and stops. So I've just got Worbla that I heated to the actual Worbla itself to also hold each of the spikes. And again, same process with painting. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say about this. I made this. I'm very proud of it. I don't know how to store it. Ow. And here's the Velcro. So like I was talking about with the hood piece, in theory it sticks up here to create an illusion that it's, you know, like, because where it would sit otherwise it would just be kind of flat here, but I wanted to create the illusion of there being actual skull underneath it, so that's where it attaches. Yeah, so this is my Witch King costume. This is the third cosplay I have ever made. I learned a lot. Turns out I think I like foam smithing better than sewing, so that's exciting. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'd love to help out, to share experiences. If you've made the Witch King, I'd love to see it. If you love the Witch King, I'd love to know. I hope you learned something from it, or if not, or at least entertained. I am really proud of this. I look at the photos that got taken of me on that stage, and it's just, it blows my mind that I was able to do that. And I am so excited to continue on my cosplay and crafting journey. I hope you subscribe, stick around to see what else I create. I am working on the dumbest project of my life right now, and I hope it pans out. Hopefully, I'll have some cool things coming out soon. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.